approve as presented.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have been approved for considering at this special meeting ordinance 1333, and this we're presenting to the council a request that we talk with Becca and Tanner, help me out here with the right wording. We are
So before you today is a draft of ordinance number 1333 regarding Series 2018 bond debt. This was drafted as a necessary step in moving forward with additional debt should we decide to do so. This will have to go to City Council for initial posting, and then back 2 weeks later at the next meeting for final approval if we're to proceed. So this is the ordinance, and it's before the board today for comment and or
and the public. We wanted the public to have an opportunity to voice their opinion. We were very adamant about focusing on paying our debt, not increasing it, but under the circumstances, just for safety precautions and to maintain our integrity in a timely fashion, we have decided to request from council this ordinance to be passed to help us do that. Is there any questions from the board on any of this?
Could you just, oh, go ahead.
I might mention the structure of this is a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. In the past, on a bond issue, more frequently, you sell the bonds, you get the funds right up front, and you go with them. This is a draw bond, so the funds can come over a period of time depending upon our need. So the structure within this ordinance and agreement is a little bit different than maybe what we've seen in the past. So don't be spooked by that.
So it'll act more like a letter of credit as long as
In that arena, yeah. A letter of credit's a little bit different, but there's other types of financial proceedings, that, and this allows us to only borrow that which we really need to accomplish whatever goals that we have set.
good. And I use those terms thinking the public would understand that.
Sure. The document is full of legal words, and
27 pages.
it's horrible.
I may just add to
Yeah.
my experience with, hold on.
With my experience as the city's finance director for 17 years, have worked with bond counsel and done a lot of debt issuance and reviewed a lot of ordinances associated with that. And this bond counsel that did the work has been the city's bond counsel for as long as I remember.
Yeah, decades.
Over 21 years.
Yeah.
Very well known, very good at what they do. The ordinance is very typical of what we've used in the past and seen in the past, other than the provisions of this particular issue. We do have an initial drawdown of $350,000, which we have identified specific uses for that qualify to be tax exempt. So the bond holder, meaning Vectra, these bonds qualify as tax exempt, meaning they're not, the proceeds and any earnings that the bondholder has is not subject to federal income tax. So that's helpful in setting the interest rate lower than what a typical taxable bond would be. And our interest rate would be reset if we draw down funds off of this in the future to be averaged with what exists and what the market rate is at that time that we were to draw down future funds. There's a maximum that we can draw in any 1 year, and a minimum of $100,000 per draw. So it's a good function for our purposes, so that we're not paying interest on proceeds that we're not using, and it's just sitting in the bank. So it fits our needs
Precisely.
nicely.
Yeah.
So what is the effective interest rate for when we'll be signing it, or what is it today or yesterday?
Well, when we last calculated it, it was 4.78%. And when I last reported here at the meeting, what the terms were shaping up to be, it was a 10-year FHLB, which is the Federal
Home Loan Bank.
Home Loan Bank rate, plus 2.5% times 80%. And what's written in here is 5-year FHLB rate.
So it's 5 years.
Yeah, which appears to be a little bit better for us. We also thought we'd have a, just 1 second, limit of, was it 250 minimum draws, and we've negotiated that down to 100,000. We thought we'd be limited to, I think it was 2 draws per year, and this ordinance says once per month. So really it's a little
That sounds
better than what we had anticipated in terms of the terms.
Well done.
The nonprofit status, like, that got resolved. Is that
Yeah,
your
well,
question?
we're not really a nonprofit. We are an entity, a component unit of government, municipal government, and so we get that public funds treatment in interest and in the debt. So, because we issue bonds, the city issues the bonds on behalf of the DDA, is how the bonds are structured and described. Does that answer your question? We're not a nonprofit.
Yeah, no, it was,
We're a subset or a sub-entity of a municipal organization.
only my wife understands how finances work. But there was discussion last time about purchasing the bonds, whether they would be taxable. And so you got that resolved.
All of our uses qualify for tax exemption. We had quite a lengthy discussion with the attorneys about that, and the tax department of Kutak Rock, which is the bond attorneys. They have a whole tax department, and those partners chimed in and helped us determine the tax exempt status for these, which is glorious, actually. Lack of a better word. And just so you know, the first reading for the council will be the 16th, which is next Thursday, and then the public hearing will be September 6th.
Which should be just a couple days after our September meeting. So this can remain on our agenda if you want through then until it's complete.
Do we have any participation from the audience? Tony?
It took about 10 minutes this morning to type this up real quick.
No, thank you.
Hello?
Yeah.
So, again, to make sure you guys are clear on my purpose for even bringing this up is, my intention is to, as a citizen, as a business person, to hopefully add value to this process to make us all better. So I just, like I said, in 10 minutes brought these up. So obviously the ordinance is pretty complicated for the average person to read. And so one of the things I'm asking is, what is the process for the drawdown loan? Any covenants, dual control, documented processes? Because despite the ordinance, how you functionally do it should be very clear to everyone. So think about that. Kelly, you mentioned the first $350,000, and my question is, what are those funds specifically allocated for? I don't think it should be top secret what the line items are.
not at all.
And also, in my opinion, every expense should be pre-approved by the board. Every financial decision should be made by consensus. There should be written procedures on the expense process. Now that the lawsuit is in the hands of the judge, it is time for the DDA to release the detailed billing and all expenses related to the lawsuit and all other expenses, in my opinion. There needs to be a strategic plan to get the debt paid, including the delinquent payment to the City of Woodland Park. I'm guessing that's part of this straw.
Yes.
Other than the mitigation to prevent yet another lawsuit on the Woodland Station property, no additional monies should be expended except maybe mowing. Again, this property should be mothballed until the free market brings a developer willing to pay for the land and the related development costs. The dream of an events venue should be abandoned. DDA efforts should be limited to prudently managing revenues, planning the DDA exit strategy, paying debt, and possibly evaluating future TIF deals if the community has an appetite for it. Also, there is also information floating out there that the DDA is participating with other groups to direct how the lodging and sales tax budget is allocated. Given the current status of the DDA, the board as a body should not participate in this process. Not saying that as citizens you can't participate in the process, because that's all of our rights, but I think as a board, as a body, the DDA shouldn't be representing that they're trying to direct how lodging tax monies are done. I think you have a very clear, very difficult job right here that you should stay focused on. So, very simple, something to think about. I'm guessing, well, I know, because I've talked to quite a few people, these are the kind of things that maybe the council will want to hear about or have answered, and I think it's pretty prudent business processes. So just give it some consideration, please.
Mary Jo, may I comment?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. I want to thank Tony for this. I think there's a lot of good information here for us to take back. I'm sorry. And I would just suggest that any expenses for the DDA are follow the city's accounts payable procedures. But as far as a board, I would just comment that I appreciate the comment and the suggestions. I think they're productive. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I would like to point out on the Woodland Station project, you say not to spend any more money. We haven't opened a bit into their opportunity.
No,
And we'll probably complete that permit. And I'd like to once again remind all present that in our advice from developers to come and purchase to develop on that, to participate, it really needs to be a healthier downtown before they will be interested. And we were hoping to use the Woodland Station property in a minimal way to help make that a healthier downtown because of the events. Can I get your opinion on that?
Yeah, frankly, I think when I used the term mothballed before, I think everyone assumed it was the whole DDA. That's not possible. As you heard Tuesday, this DDA is going to have to be extended just to get the debt paid down. That's the reality. But for the property itself, if you think the free market is who's going to solve it, the DDA has not solved it in 18 years, 17 years. Again, I would suggest that cleaning up the property, fixing the erosion control issue that you're doing is prudent and wise. But it's spending any other monies does not make sense. I think with Memorial Park, revamped Memorial Park coming online, that is going to be the de facto event area, and to try to replicate that or compete against that does not make sense for the city. The developers, at some point, that piece of property will be the premier piece of commercial property left in Woodland Park. Is that 5 years? Is that 20 years? We don't know. I'm just suggesting that until the market brings a solution, we're not smart enough to figure it out. Someone has to be smart enough and also have a checkbook. And that's what we've been missing for 17 years. No one has actually brought their checkbook. A lot of people have talked about it. We've dreamed. We've hoped. You know, hope is not a good word. You plan. Even this meeting, I hate to say it, shows a lack of poor planning in terms of this process. I mean, it shouldn't have had to be an emergency or a quick meeting. This should have been planned out, knowing the timing of the city council meetings. So it could have been addressed Tuesday, if that makes sense. So I'm just suggesting that as a body, you're all volunteers. Again, it's not lost on me the effort that you put in. It's not lost on me the care and the energy that you put into this process. I'm just saying, let's all do it better together. But in my opinion, Woodland Station should just be left as it is, other than mowed, after you fix the erosion controls and wait for the market. Any other efforts, basically at this point, I mean, look back, for those who have been on the board a while, look at what Tim Hall came in, and you guys all got excited that he was going to develop the whole thing from a group from California. How many times have we seen that? I know many of you have talked to many developers, the same developers I've talked to, and it's a quick 5-minute conversation. They're not even close to thinking this property is ready. So until the other commercial properties in town get resolved, which they will at some point, I don't have a crystal ball, it's not worth your effort to put into it. And I would also suggest that if you stay focused on your mission of potential TIF deals, paying down debt, managing revenues, not worried about the community events and stuff, because that's not really the purview of this body, except in the general sense of promoting the downtown. I think there's other groups that have emerged that are doing that well. That doesn't mean you can't participate, but I wouldn't be driving it, and I wouldn't be spending a lot of time, meeting resources, time resources on that effort. We had a discussion. I think the meeting Tuesday was helpful because the assessor explained how TIF affects this body, but the overarching issue of property taxes, commercial property taxes, is really not the focus of this body either. Again, if we as citizens want to address that, there's other ways to do that. So I'm just saying it's going to be easier on you as a body if you narrow your focus, get laser focused. There's no reason right now that you're not sitting there planning out the strategy for actually paying down this debt, showing us the spreadsheet of this is the timing, and if we do a TIF deal, this is how it's going to affect the timing, or whether it makes sense. That's all. So to answer your question in a long way, I just did. In a short way, I wouldn't do anything with the property. Let the developers, let the market come to you. At some point, someone will come and say, hey, I'm willing to pay X for the property, and we know it's going to be $2 million for infrastructure, and to put the new light in at Vectra, and to put in the curb and gutter, and we're willing to do it because the market makes sense. We are not smart enough, and I say we need to. I don't have an answer. If I were sitting on this board with you, I wouldn't have any answers either. We don't know until the market brings it to us. If I had a big checkbook, I would have an answer, but we don't. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
We've always maintained the status that we do not want to be developers. And that has always
Thank you.
been from the very beginning our platform, and I don't think that's changed. We do what we have to do when we think we have to do it, but past that, we're not developers. Henry, you had something? No.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Vicki?
As far as any type of development, I agree with Mr. Perry, but we also need to have more parking. So if some development does need to be done on that property so we can have a little bit of RV parking. Parking is a big issue when we have an event in town, and if we can use that property, the DDA property, in order to get RVs parked over there, I think it would be a very good idea to spend a little bit of money to make it safe for people to park there.
I do want to bring a point up about that. This is probably not related to this meeting, but we have to be careful about the RV part of the war. We've had some issues come up where they are spending the night and wanting to use the restroom
Mary Jo?
Yes.
Main Street is talking about, I don't know that we'll have an answer, but about doing something with the signs, so when the signs are posted, it's understood that, somewhere, somehow, that there's no overnight parking. The signs that went up were just kind of like, let's get something up now so people come into town, they know where RV parking is, but it doesn't explain that, and that'll be improved upon.
I would say that we're off topic. This is considering an ordinance, not
We are.
I would
not
really like to
projects.
move on from that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up with the next thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, one comment, because I think it would be helpful. So, with the tax exempt status, just from a simple perspective, from my perspective, what's nice about it, and I agree, is that for the investor, whether it's Vectra or they sell that bond to other investors, tax exempt status means that that on their books, on their investment portfolio, it's tax exempt. If they are a natural person in Colorado, they get usually double tax exempt status because it's a Colorado municipal bond. So there are advantages to the investor. So that was very good for you guys to have negotiated that, and it sounds like you negotiated reasonable terms. So good job.
Okay,
Thank you.
then can we assume we're ready to move on to approve this, and hopefully by 9 o'clock we can be done. Yes, Tanner?
Just for the record, I did speak with Elijah Murphy prior to this meeting, and he was in support of this, so I wanted to let that be known.
Okay, thank you. I hear a motion.
Bourne moves to advance ordinance number 1333 to the Woodland Park City Council with a recommendation of passage.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Jan. Any more discussion? In the audience or the board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, passed unanimous. We'll go to council and hopefully have our first reading soon. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your comments. And the papers that were given here are in the front row during the meeting. So if anybody would like a copy, let us know. And we'll probably have that available on our website. It's very good. Thank you for coming. Well, Carolyn, surely breakfast is in order.
Since you were brought here kicking and screaming.
At least it's not 7:30, Carol.